The space station known as Veltrian 9 floated quietly in orbit above a dead planet. It was a massive metal city in the stars, where the galaxy's strongest alien warriors came to train. Among these warriors stood one human Corporal Jace Miller. He was the only human in the entire base, and almost everyone made sure he knew it. The aliens around him were tall, strong, and fast. Some had claws, others tails, and many looked down on humans. But Jace didn't complain. He trained harder than anyone, ran faster, lifted more, and never gave up. Still, the aliens whispered behind his back. They called him weak, soft, and unworthy of standing among them. But one alien didn't just whisper, she challenged. Her name was Skara. She was a proud female warrior from the Zyran species 8 feet. Tall with silver skin and glowing red eyes, she was feared by everyone except Jace, and maybe that's why she kept testing him. Every day, she would poke him, both with words and actions. "You move like a wounded animal," she said during drills. "You humans must survive with luck, not strength," she smirked. Sometimes she'd shove him during training, knock his cup over in the cafeteria, or mock his speed, and still, Jace didn't react. He stayed calm, steady, and silent. He kept working, even harder than before, because Jace knew something the others didn't. He had nothing left to prove to anyone but himself. But Skara's games became worse. One afternoon during combat training, she pushed him too far. They were paired together in a sparring match. Everyone gathered around the Zyrans, the Valari, the Thrix. Every alien wanted to see the human lose. "Try not to cry," Skara said as they stood in the training circle. The instructor blew the whistle. Skara attacked first, swinging her long arm toward his chest. Jace dodged quickly and jabbed her side. She smiled, impressed but still mocking. "Is that all, human? You touch like a child," she teased. Jace narrowed his eyes. Staying quiet, she lunged again, pinning him to the floor in one strong motion. The crowd laughed as she leaned closer and whispered in his ear, "Submit, little human. Show your place." And that's when it happened, without thinking. Jace twisted his neck and bit her hard on the shoulder. Gasps filled the room. Skara froze, her red eyes wide. She leaped off him, holding her shoulder where his teeth had sunk in. It wasn't bleeding, but the mark was clear. The room went silent. The laughter stopped. Everyone stared at Jace, confused, shocked, and a little afraid. Even the instructor said nothing. Skara turned slowly, eyes locked on Jace. "You bit me," she said, voice low and strange. Jace stood up and wiped his mouth. "You asked me to show my place," he said, "and I did." No one laughed now. Skara didn't speak. She looked at the bite, touched it, then looked at him again, differently this time. There was no anger in her eyes. Only something new, something no one understood yet. Then she turned and walked away. Without another word, the other aliens slowly stepped back, letting her pass. And Jace stood alone in the center of the ring. Not a single warrior dared mock him that day. Later that night, in the quiet of his quarters, Jace sat by the window. He looked out into the stars and let out a breath. "What did I just do?" he whispered to himself. He didn't know that Zyran females viewed biting as a sign of dominance, and sometimes even courtship. He didn't know that the mark he left on Skara's shoulder meant more than just defiance. And he certainly didn't know that his life was about to change forever, because across the station, Skara stood alone in a mirror, staring at the bite mark. Her fingers gently brushed over it, and for the first time in her life, she didn't feel superior. She felt curious, excited, and challenged. "This human," she whispered, "might be more than he seems." The day after the bite, everything changed. Not just for Jace, but for the entire base. Skara didn't show up for the morning drills. That had never happened before. She was always the first one on the field, always the loudest, the strongest, the leader. But today, the training ground felt different. Quieter, tenser, like the wind had stopped moving. Jace stretched silently near the corner. The same aliens who laughed at him yesterday were now whispering from a distance. No one approached him. No one bumped his shoulder, even the instructor. Gave him a short nod, something like respect or maybe fear, but Jace wasn't proud. He was confused. Why did everything feel so strange after a simple bite? Across the station, deep in her private chamber, Skara stood in front of the mirror again. Her fingers traced the faint, healing mark on her shoulder. To most, it would look like a wound, but to her species, the Zirin people, it meant something. Else among the Zirin, biting was not a shameful act. It was ancient, a form of bonding. Warriors who bit each other during battle were said to be equals, and if a bite came without killing intent, it could be taken as a mating claim. Skara had expected Jace to yell, to punch, or even submit like the others, but he did something wild, something primal. He bit her, and now she couldn't stop thinking about it. She tried to ignore it. She told herself it meant nothing, but her heart pounded every time she saw him, and her instincts screamed louder than her thoughts. Later that day, she appeared again on the training field. The whispers stopped when she walked in. Her eyes scanned the crowd and locked directly onto Jace. Without speaking, she marched across the field toward him. Jace straightened his back. Everyone watched, frozen. Was she going to attack him? Humiliate him? Get revenge? She stopped just inches away. "You bit me," she said, calm and low. Jace didn't flinch. "You challenged me," he replied. "I answered." For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then she said something no one expected. "Meet me in the sparring chamber. Tonight." Her voice had no mockery, no anger, just cold fire. Then she turned and walked away again. That night, Jace stood inside the dim-lit sparring chamber. The door slid open, and Zasira entered. She wore no armor, only tight training clothes that showed her tall, muscled figure. Jace stood ready, unsure of what was coming. "I didn't call you here to fight," she said slowly. "Then why am I here?" Jace asked. Zakara crossed her arms. "My species takes bites seriously." Jace raised an eyebrow. "It wasn't romantic," he said quickly. "I know," she replied, "but your instincts said something else." She stepped closer. "You marked me, and now I feel different." "I don't want to feel different," she added with a growl. "But I do." Jace stayed quiet. He didn't know what to say. He had no idea his action would shake the mind of a proud alien warrior. Skara looked at him, studying his face. "Tell me something, human," she said. "Do you fear me?" Jace shook his head. "No." She stepped even closer. "Do you hate me?" Again, he said. "No." "Then why do you not kneel like the others?" she asked, frustrated. Jace gave a soft laugh. "Because I don't kneel for bullies," he said. "I stand until I earn respect or break trying." Skara blinked slowly. No one had ever said that to her, not even her own kind. She reached out, touched the bite mark on her shoulder. "It still burns," she whispered, "but it doesn't hurt. It reminds me that you're not what I thought." Jace looked up at her. "And you're not just some cold warrior," he said. "You're curious and maybe even lonely." That word lonely hit her hard. She stepped back, suddenly unsure. "I don't know what you did to me," she said, voice trembling, "but I want to understand it." Jace nodded slowly. "Then stop testing me like an enemy," he said. "Start walking beside me." The room was quiet again. Then, slowly, Skara gave a small nod. "Maybe I will," she said. "But first, can you survive me?" Before he could ask what she meant, she lunged forward and wrapped an arm around his waist. Jace stumbled, surprised. She laughed, a deep, rare sound from her lips. "Relax, human," she said. "This is how we begin." Jace stood inside the private sparring room, the air thick and still. The metal walls around him hummed with a quiet power, but nothing moved. He was alone until the door slid open and Skara stepped in. This time, she didn't wear armor, nor her usual proud expression. She looked calm, alert, but something in her eyes burned. "Lock the door," she said. Jace hesitated for a moment, then pressed the control panel. The door sealed shut behind him with a soft hiss. He turned to her, unsure what to expect. Why are we here? He asked. Zakara walked to the center of the room, her movements smooth and silent. We're going to fight, she said simply. But not like before. Jace's jaw tensed. You want revenge for the bite? She tilted her head. If I wanted revenge, you'd already be on the floor. No, she added. I want truth. Jace stepped forward, watching her carefully. What truth? Skara raised her arms in a fighting stance. Can you stand as my equal, or was that bite just luck? It wasn't about hurting each other. It wasn't about punishment. This was a test, ancient and personal. And Jace understood now. This was her way of offering respect. But only if he earned it. He rolled his shoulders and nodded. All right, he said. Let's find out. They circled each other, bare hands ready, eyes locked. Zakara attacked first, a smooth lunge with her legs sweeping low. Jace jumped over it and countered with a punch to her side. She grinned. As it landed, better, she said. She came at him again, faster now, claws retracted. But strikes strong and sharp. Jace blocked with his arms, ducked, spun, and slammed his elbow against her back. Zakara stumbled slightly, caught herself, and smiled. I expected less from you, she said. I expected more from you, he shot back. Their movements were fierce but controlled. No blood, no rage, just raw power, balance, and heat. Skara leapt and pinned him against the wall for a moment. You're strong, she whispered, breathing hard. But strength alone isn't enough. Jace pushed off the wall and flipped her onto the mat with one move. She laughed as she hit the ground, laughed not with pride, but with something deeper. She stayed there for a moment, looking up at him, and didn't get up. Why aren't you finishing it? He asked. Because I don't need to, she said. You didn't fight to win. You fought to stand beside me. Jace extended a hand to help her up. She took it, slowly, her silver fingers wrapped around his wrist, and she pulled herself to her feet, but she didn't let go. You don't understand what you did, do you? She asked softly. Jace shook his head. That bite. Among my kind, it means something. Something dangerous. He looked into her glowing red eyes. Tell me. Skara looked down at the mark on her shoulder, now faint, but still there. In our culture, she said, a bite without blood is a signal of bond. It means the challenger sees you, not as prey, but as worthy. Sometimes it even means mate. Jace's breath caught. I didn't know, he said. I didn't mean. Skara raised a hand. I know you didn't, she said gently, but your instincts did. For a moment, the room felt warmer, not because of heat, but because of the strange energy between them. Two warriors from different worlds, two enemies turned allies. Now something else was growing between them, something unspoken. I brought you here, Skara said, not to punish you, but to see if the feeling was only mine. And? Jace asked, voice low. She stepped close. And now I don't feel alone anymore. The door behind them hissed. Someone was trying to open it. They stepped apart quickly. The private moment was gone, but not forgotten. Skara walked toward the exit panel and unlocked the door. She turned back and said, We're not finished. Human, Jace nodded. Not even close, as she left. Jace felt something new in his chest. Not fear, not confusion, but something. Almost like belonging. He had come to the station alone, but now he wasn't just surviving, he was seen, and far down the corridor, Skara touched her shoulder again. The mark still tingled. She smiled to herself. He passed, she whispered. But can he survive what comes next? Asterisk. The lights flickered above the long hallway of Veltrian 9. A low hum vibrated through the station, too soft to notice, but enough to unsettle the trained ear. Jace walked back from the training hall, sweat still drying on his skin. His thoughts were a storm. Zakara's words echoed in his head. The bite, the bond, the moment they almost shared. He didn't fully understand her culture, but he knew something real had changed between them. He stepped into his room, sat down on the edge of his bed, and exhaled. But before he could think more, the lights went out, all of them. Total darkness swallowed the room, then a harsh red emergency. Light blinked on, spinning across the walls. A loud alarm pierced the silence. Security breach, Deck 6, all units respond. The station AI barked over the speakers. Jace shot up, grabbing his gear from under the bed. But as he reached the hallway, 2 alien guards were already waiting for him, weapons raised. "Don't move, human," one of them growled. "What?" "I just got here," Jace said, confused. "You were seen near the systems corridor just hours ago," the other replied. "I was training with Ziaga." Jace snapped, but they didn't care. They marched him down the corridor, past the red lights and flashing alarms. In another part of the station, Skara stood before the main power core. She saw the broken panels, wires hanging like torn veins. The console had been ripped open by something powerful, maybe a plasma blade. This wasn't sabotage by mistake, it was war. Her comms buzzed. "Skara, report human prisoner in custody." The voice said, her eyes widened. "They arrested him?" She asked. "Yes, he's being taken to detention." Zakara's hands tightened into fists. She turned to the engineer beside her. "Show me the security feed." They pulled it up. Skara leaned closer, eyes searching every frame. The image showed a shadowy figure near the power grid, tall and fast, but it wasn't Jace. Wrong shape, wrong body, wrong movements. "That's not the human," she whispered, and without waiting for permission, she ran. Jace sat in the detention cell, small and cold. The walls buzzed with static energy, meant to keep even strong aliens inside. He sat on the floor, elbows on his knees. He didn't look afraid, but inside, he felt the old feelings creeping in again, alone, outnumbered, disposable. The door opened fast, and Zakara stormed in, her eyes blazing. The guards stepped back as she glared at them. "Release him," she ordered. "He's under investigation." One said, "Wrong," she growled. "He's under my protection." Without waiting, she slammed the override key into the panel and the shield dropped. Jace stood up, blinking. "You broke me out?" He asked. "You didn't do it," she replied. "I saw the real footage." Together, they ran, the station shaking slightly with every passing minute. Skara pulled him into a side tunnel that led toward the command room. "What's going on?" Jace asked. "Sabotage," she said. "We're under attack from inside rogue elements. They want to destroy the core and crash the station into the planet below." Jace's eyes widened. "Why?" "To send a message to the Galactic Council," she replied. "Some aliens believe humans and mixed-race stations like ours are weakening the old warrior traditions. They reached the elevator shaft, but the lift was dead. We climb." Skara said. She reached for the wall panels, pulling herself up using the emergency ladder. Jace followed close behind, both of them moving fast through the dark and red-lit shaft. Halfway up, the ladder shook, explosions echoed above them. Dust rained down. Skara paused, looking down at him. "Still with me, human?" "Not letting go," he answered. She smiled. Just for a second, when they reached the command hallway, the floor was covered in smoke and sparks. A group of 3 rogue aliens blocked the path, weapons drawn. Skara didn't stop, she roared. Charging forward, claws flashing in the emergency light. Jace flanked her, diving and rolling behind one enemy and sweeping their legs out. Zakara took down the leader in one strike to the throat. Jace caught a plasma blade with his forearm armor and punched the attacker hard enough to knock him out cold. They stood over the unconscious bodies, breathing hard. For a moment, everything was still. "You fight like you belong here," Skara said softly. "Maybe I finally do," Jace replied. She touched his shoulder. "You saved my life," she whispered. He looked at her. "You saved mine when you opened that cell." Their eyes met in the smoke-filled hallway, and in that moment, neither cared about species, rank, or history. They were just 2 warriors on the same side. Smoke filled the command corridor like a choking fog. Jace and Skara moved through it together, their boots pounding against the trembling floor. The sirens were louder now, and the station shook again. They were running out of time. The intruders are heading for the bridge, Skara said, panting as she ran. They'll take control of the station from there. If they reach the override system, they can steer Veltrian 9 straight into the dead planet, Jace tightened, his grip on the plasma baton in his hand. How many are we up against? Too many, she replied. But we don't need to stop them all, just the leader. He's the one with the access code. They turned a corner and ran straight into a firefight. Rogue aliens had set up a blockade, shooting at any approaching defenders. Skara didn't wait. She grabbed a loose energy shield from the wall, threw it to Jace, and yelled, "Cover me!" Then she charged, her body moving like lightning, claws slashing through the smoke. Jace followed, using the shield to block incoming blasts while swinging the baton at anyone who got too close. For a few minutes they fought like a perfect team. Skara took the hits. Jace blocked her blind spots. Back to back, they held the line. Aliens twice Jace's size fell to his fists. Skara snarled like a wild animal, her silver skin gleaming with sweat and dirt. But then, in the chaos, it happened. A flash of green light burst from behind a pillar. Skara turned too late. The plasma shot hit her side with a loud sizzle. She cried out and dropped to one knee, clutching her ribs. "Skara!" Jace shouted. He rushed to her side, slamming his shield into the attacker and knocking him unconscious. Skara's breath came in sharp gasps. "Burned through my armor," she hissed. Jace looked down at the wound. Her skin was scorched, glowing red with heat. "We need to fall back," he said. "No," she growled. "We're too close. You can't fight like this," he said. Skara grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "I trust you," she whispered. "So get me there." Without another word, Jace lifted her into his arms. She was heavier than a human, but he didn't care. He carried her like she weighed nothing. Her head rested against his shoulder, eyes half closed but still alert. "You're stronger than you look," she murmured. "You're heavier than you look," he shot back with a grin. They moved through the side tunnels, avoiding the main hallways. Every step, every breath was a battle. Jace could hear footsteps behind them, chasing, closing in. He ducked into a supply room and gently set Skara down. He reached for a medkit, opening it with shaky hands. "This is going to hurt," he warned. The Skara gave a weak smirk. "Pain means I'm alive." He injected a healing serum into the wound. Watching it bubble and steam, Skara gritted her teeth, but didn't scream. "You're doing good," Jace whispered. "Just hold on." The doors slammed open. 3 more attackers rushed in. Jace jumped in front of Skara without thinking. He swung the baton hard, knocking one back, then ducked a blade and kicked the second alien into a metal shelf. The third charged, but Skara, still on the floor, reached up and slashed his leg with her claws. He dropped instantly, howling in pain, breathing heavily. Jace leaned against the wall. Skara looked up at him. "You protected me," she said, surprised. "You're not just my equal." She added, "You're my shield." Jace helped her up slowly. "I'm not leaving you," he said firmly. "And I'm not done yet," she replied, trying to stand, but she wobbled. So he put her arm around his shoulders. Together they walked again, step by step toward the bridge. As they neared the control room, the lights returned briefly. Skara smiled through the pain. "They're trying to reboot the system," she said. "We still have time," Jace nodded. "Let's take it back." The final hallway was quiet, too quiet. At the end stood the rogue leader, tall and armored, his hands glowing with power behind him. The bridge door was already cracked open. 1 more minute, and he would have full control of the station. Jace handed Skara his baton. "You sure?" he asked. Skara's grip was weak, but her eyes burned bright. "Let's finish this together." And with that, they charged, one limping, one roaring. 2 warriors, human and alien, side by side, not for glory, not for power, but to protect each other and a future no one expected. The battle was over. The rogue aliens were captured. The bridge was secured. and the station's systems were slowly returning to normal. But peace didn't come. Not for Jace and Skara. Instead, they were summoned to stand before the station tribunal. Jace sat in a cold metal chamber, no windows, just walls that felt like they were watching him. He had washed off the blood, but not the weight on his shoulders. His uniform was torn, his knuckles bruised, and he hadn't slept since the attack. But none of that mattered now. What mattered was this: he had broken protocol, fought rogue warriors without permission, and escaped from detention. Even if he saved the station, the rules still saw him as a problem, a human problem, outside the chamber. Skara stood in front of a large mirror, tying her armor tight over her healing wound. The scar on her side still ached, but it reminded her why she was here. She looked into her own red eyes and whispered, "Don't let him face this alone." The council room was large and filled with silence. 7 alien elders sat on a raised platform, each from a different race. Their faces were calm, but their eyes were sharp. Jace stood in the center, hands behind his back. The room was full of soldiers, officers, and watchers. Some stared with curiosity, others with judgment. He felt alone again, but this time he stood tall. The council leader, a tall Thrix female with crystal horns, spoke first. "Corporal Jace Miller, human soldier," she said. "You are charged with disobedience, unauthorized combat, escape from custody, and disruption of protocol. You may speak." Jace looked around the room. "I didn't break out," he said, voice steady. "I was released by the warrior who knew I was innocent." A murmur passed through the crowd. The council leader raised her hand for silence. "And yet, you engaged in combat without command," she said. Jace nodded. "Yes," he said, "to protect this station. If I waited for permission, you'd all be ash on that planet by now." Gasps rose. But he didn't stop. "I'm human," he said, louder now. "You think I'm weak, soft, unworthy of standing beside your best. But I bled for this station, I fought for your lives, and I protected one of your own with everything I had." He paused. "If that's not honor, then I don't understand what your honor means." The room went quiet again. The council members looked at one another. Then the door opened at the back, and everyone turned. Sierra entered, walking slowly but with her head held high. Her presence made the room feel smaller, heavier, more serious. She marched straight to Jace's side and stood beside him, not behind, not above, equal. The council leader spoke again. "Warrior Skara," she said, "you were injured in this event." Skara nodded. "I was. You also released the prisoner without order." "I did, and you fought beside him, risking your own rank and status." Skara eyes burned with fire. "Yes," she said, "because I chose to." Another elder leaned forward. "Why?" he asked. "He is human, and you are Zirin." Skara took a deep breath. "In the beginning, I thought he was beneath me," she said, "a small creature with no strength. But then he bit me." The room stirred again, not in hate, she continued, but in resistance, in fire. "He didn't kneel, he stood." She reached up and touched her shoulder, where the faint scar still remained. "I took it as an insult," she said. "But I learned it was not. It was instinct. It was courage. And maybe it was more." She turned to Jace. "This human did not just protect me. He challenged me, stood beside me, and saved me. I have never met a warrior like him, even among my own kind." The council sat in silence for a long moment. Then the Thrix elder spoke again. "Are you making a claim, warrior Jakara?" The room held its breath. Ziara stood tall. "I am," she said. "By the right of the bonded trial, I claim him as my equal, my shield, my chosen." Gasps broke across the room like a wave. Some were shocked, others outraged, and a few moved. Jace's heart pounded in his chest. He didn't understand every word, but he felt the weight of it. He stepped closer to her. "And I stand with her," he said, not as a soldier under command, but as a man who earned her side. The council leaned back in silence. Finally, the leader nodded. "Then so be it," she said. "Charges dismissed." Status updated. You both may go. The chamber broke into quiet murmurs as Azakara and Jace walked out together. Side by side, no longer questioned, no longer outsiders recognized as... They stepped into the quiet corridor. Zakara smirked. "Careful, human," she said. "You just made history." Jace laughed softly. "You started it." She tilted her head. "You finished it." Then, without warning, she reached out and tapped his jaw with her claw gently. "One day," she said, "you might bite me again. And next time," she added with a grin, "I'll bite back." The dropship landed on the far side of the moon colony known as HFY. There were no grand welcomes, no flags, no soldiers waiting, just silence and wind. A forgotten outpost with broken towers, half-functioning systems and miles of icy ground. Skara stepped off the ramp first, her boots crunching into frozen soil. Jace followed close behind, carrying their shared supply case over one shoulder. They had been exiled, but not punished. The Galactic Council said it was for diplomatic balance. But in truth, they were being removed because no one knew what to do with them. A bonded human and Zirian warrior? It had never happened before, so they were sent far from the noise, far from the politics, far from those who whispered behind closed doors. But to Jace, this wasn't punishment, it was freedom. He looked around the quiet base and said, "Well, it's not much," Zakara smirked. "It's ours." They spent the next week restoring the outpost, fixing broken comms, powering the shields, reprogramming drones. They trained in the mornings, patrolled in the evenings, and shared stories. By the heater at night, something between them had changed, no longer just warriors, not yet lovers, but something powerful and growing. One evening, Skara stood at the edge of the cliff near the base. Staring at the stars, Jace walked up beside her, handing her a hot cup of broth. She took it, but her eyes stayed on the sky. "They still don't accept us," she said quietly. "They fear us, because we did something they didn't expect." Jace nodded. "We didn't follow their rules." He said, "We followed our instincts." Zakara turned to him. "And now we're alone." Jace gave her a small smile. "Not alone," he said. "Not anymore." But their peace didn't last. On the 10th day, a strange signal came through their scanner. Encrypted, broken, but clearly a distress call. Askara's fingers flew across the panel, decoding what little she could. "It's a hidden broadcast," she said. "From a Zyran ship hijacked." Jace leaned over the monitor. "Coordinates?" Skara nodded slowly. "Edge of Sector 17. That's inside the red silence zone." Jace said, frowning. "No patrols, no rescue anyone who goes in. Usually doesn't come out." Skara looked up at him. "Still want to be my shield?" Jace grabbed his gear. "I never stopped." They flew a small scout vessel toward the signal, through debris fields, magnetic storms, and silence so deep it felt alive. Skara sat in the pilot's seat, steady and calm. Jace watched the scanners, eyes sharp, heart steady. When they found the ship, it was worse than expected. A massive Zyran cruiser, floating dead in space. No lights, no response, just the broken echo of the same message repeating. They boarded the ship in silence. The corridors were dark and cold. Signs of a battle scorch marks, collapsed doors, shattered helmets, but no bodies. Skara knelt beside a fallen weapon. "Zyran tech," she said. "But it was fired from inside." Jace looked around slowly. They turned on each other, further. Inside, they found the survivors. 3 alien officers, weak and injured, hiding in the engine room. One of them, a young Villari medic, grabbed Jace's hand with trembling fingers. "They were taken," she whispered, "by something. Not Zyran. Not anything we've seen." Suddenly, the ship groaned around them. The walls vibrated with a low hum. Skara's hand shot to her weapon. Something still here. From the shadows they came, twisted, dark shapes with burning eyes and shifting forms. Not machines, not beasts, something new. They attacked fast, no warning, no sound. Zakara and Jace fought like one being, moving in perfect rhythm, Claws met fists, blades met blocks. Screams echoed through the halls. Zakara was knocked back, her claws slicing two of the creatures before she hit the wall. Jace leapt over her, covering her body with his, swinging his baton until the creatures fell back. Together, they rose again, breathing heavy, bleeding, but unbroken. "This isn't just a rescue," Jace said. "This is an invasion test. They're experimenting," Skara added, "studying our species." They guided the survivors back to their ship. Jace piloted while Sakara manned the weapons, blasting the dark figures as they tried to follow. They escaped just in time, watching the cruiser vanish in flames behind them. Back at Oryx 5, they sent a report to the council, but days passed, no reply. Jace stared at the silent coms inside. "They're not coming," Skara nodded. "Then we do it our way." They began preparing, fortifying their outpost, mapping the signal trails, building traps, designing new weapons. They weren't soldiers of a great army anymore. They were the front line. And as they stood side by side, weapons in hand, looking out into the stars, they knew they had found something rare. Not just love, not just partnership, but something stronger than any empire. Two warriors from different worlds. One bond, one purpose. Their own war, their own way. And the galaxy had no idea what was coming.